Welcome to the Fathers of the Future podcast. My name is Luke Kayam, and I am joined by my brother Mike Wilcox on a flight in from Cheyenne, Wyoming, by way of Denver, Colorado.
Yes, sir, yeah.
Welcome to beautiful Scottsdale. How's this weather?
It's not 30 degrees and 50 mile per hour wind, man. It's beautiful out here.
How did you get, we're going to start there, first question out the gate. How did you get to Cheyenne and Wyoming? I have not visited yet, been to Montana a few times, Idaho, but it's the great outdoors.
It is,
beautiful.
yeah. We always talk about getting you out there. We need to make that happen.
Yeah.
I actually grew up in Wyoming my entire life, my childhood. My folks were from there, born and raised. I left for a few years when I joined the Army. Found my way back, my way up to Idaho, and then back to Wyoming for grad school, for life, for work. That's how, yeah. So not just deep roots to Wyoming. You're right. It is a great outdoors. It's the least populated state, so a lot of open space, which is great. But it can have its hardship with hard weather, hard wind type stuff. But
it's on the plateau. It's got
it
some
is.
wind to it.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I saw a piece of property that we were looking at together, 25 acres, a river running through it, just the most beautiful, epic, plot of land I've ever seen, right? Any man's dream, and they don't show you how cold and windy it gets on the camera.
No, not at all. Yeah, like I said, I left there this morning. It was wind was ripping about 50 miles per hour, so it's, even on a beautiful day, it turns it into a bad day, which some people love it. Some people love the open space, the lack of people, not as busy as a place like Phoenix or even Denver for that matter. And it's a nice place. I don't foresee myself being there for a long time. My kids are there. Once they move on with their life, I'll probably venture away from Wyoming and just have it as a place I grew up and be able to go back to. But yeah, my parents still live there. My brother or sister still live there. So not a bad place, just not my favorite place to say.
Well, hard times create strong men, and
Sure.
We talk about this a lot in the Fathers of the Future movement of leaning in. The obstacle is the way, finding a hardship. And we've both done a 100-mile endurance run a couple Octobers back.
Yeah.
Pretty awesome experience to share with you. But all of my training was in nice weather, including the race itself. And you would tell me stories about heading out for your 5, 10, 12-mile runs and just be hammered. You actually were in a 50K, I believe, and you got hypo. You went into hypo.
Yeah, that was in Montana, but yeah, it was a late, it was an April run, and a cold winter storm moved in April, and I ended up getting hypothermia, a DNF. I remember the lady that, it was a medical DNF, the race assistant pulled me out. I was really angry about that. Look back, I wish I could send that lady an apology, because you're in the moment. You're wanting to finish this race. I had 4 miles left, and my hands were shaking so bad, uncontrollably. And when they hit me with the temp gun, I just, they said, yeah, you have hypothermia. I didn't realize it, but once I came off that and they put me in the heat blanket, how the pain of warming back up that came with it. So Wyoming, very similar to Montana, storms were rolling in like that. To your point, when we were training for the race, it was a great discipline moment, because I would have to force myself to go run when it's cold or there's snow on the ground or the wind's blowing 50 miles per hour and it's 10 degrees out. I hats and gloves and would get running. So it was definitely as you know, cold's a discipline builder. It's a great thing if you can use it to your advantage, and it really taught me to be disciplined on, I don't want to go run, but I have to run. I have this big, important race that's huge to me. And so it was just another adversity that I had to go overcome, repeating, getting better at it. And then it got to the point where I almost embraced it. Like, all right, it's cold, let's go. And just, yeah.
Live free, run more became your mantra.
Yes, sir. Live free, run more. Yeah, I got it on my leg.
Yeah.
We got shirts for it. Definitely how I kind of look at my life.
But looking at that just a few years ago, you didn't have an endurance background. You weren't a ultra marathon runner when you were in the Army. You didn't run cross country track in high school.
Yeah.
That was something that you learned. And as we all know, in the endurance world, it becomes, mentally challenging as much as it does physical. You suffered, you sacrificed, you trained a lot of miles. You attempted the first time a 100-mile race, and you kept coming back and got to mile 62, I believe, which is the most you'd ever ran.
Yes. Yeah.
And then you went back to the drawing board, started training more, and came back the following year, and that's the year we did it in 2024. But what did you learn from that experience of not finishing that DNF? How much did it stoke the fire in you?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is being able to recognize that failure is going to happen even when you don't plan for it, or even when you do plan for it, for that matter. What I took from that is how to train more in a way that's smart. I had this old school, dog mentality, just grit it out, put your head down, work hard. So going back to that after that DNF, it was, how do I take care of my body in a way that's sustainable, whether it be nutrition or, not just running. There's strength building that goes into it. It's the mental endurance of, why am I here? What am I doing this for? Understanding your purpose and what your drive was. Those were the mentality pieces that I picked up from the DNF, where prior to that it was just show up and run more, run harder, and that wasn't the case. So taking that endurance piece of, it's running, but there's also taking care of your mind and your body in a way that allows you to be successful in those hard moments. Mile 62, my nutrition was really off. I hadn't taken in the right amount of calories. I was overhydrating. There's just little things that you don't realize until you've been in that moment to get better. And so using that information was allowing me to, get better as we came back the year following. The other piece is, I thought we talked about this. I was scared, really scared going into that first run. I didn't know what to expect. What I took from that is just facing that fear, showing up to run a 100-mile run. But then when we came back the second time, having knowledge and being able to say, there's no reason to be scared. You've been here, and having that fearless mentality of show up and you've worked so hard, you put all the pieces together to succeed, was huge for me. So, plus there was a chip on my shoulder. Nobody likes to fail. Nobody wants to fail. Having that I didn't make it feeling carried over my head for a year, and I didn't want to feel that way anymore of not succeeding. Ultimately, I wasn't trying to prove anything to anybody at that point. It was proving it to myself. You can run 100 miles and you will run 100 miles. So yeah, that's kind of where that all came from.
In the absence of action is fear, and I couldn't get my head around 100 miles when I was running a marathon, or even in that 32 plus, and then running a 50K and then eventually 50 miles. I still couldn't mentally do the math in my head that made it seem completable. I would process, all right, I ran 50 miles, it took me 12 hours. You're going to slow down even more, it's going to hurt even more. How do you now get through the back half and finish, endurance running and training, long distance, and not just in duration or task, but time, doing 24-hour, 48-hour competitions, doing a 55-hour crucible, a 32-hour crucible, right? Stretching that capacity and ultimately enduring the pain and the suffering. That pain magnified for you. Second year, you completed it, and I bet that felt great to know, I didn't just accept it, but I came back a year later, trained harder, differently, improved, and finished. But also just knowing that you've done something that very little people, a small percentage, will ever do, in the whole world. That's that rare mindset that had to have carried over into other areas of your life, including your fatherhood path and your professional life.
For sure. So the biggest takeaway from that I've worked on is trying to remain humble with it, because that is a feat that, a very tiny percentage of the world population has ever done. So trying to be humble with that, because it is an amazing feat, and I'm really proud of it, but I don't want to be that guy that, oh, look at me, I've run 100 miles. Anytime I see anybody running now, I'm just proud for them. Like, you're going out there, whether it be 2 miles, 5 miles, 10 miles, 100 miles, like, good for you for getting out there and putting some miles in. So it's made it more a feeling of being proud of other runners, other people that take on endurance type sports. One of the biggest takeaways I didn't mention was just the brotherhood that came with it, doing it with you. A couple of our really good friends out there, one of my best friends came out and helped me. That was huge. So just the camaraderie piece of it. Still this day, the big piece, taking it back to my fatherhood journey. My youngest son, Conrad, was with me. He was still to this day, I think it, talks about it all the time. He's got a picture framed in his bedroom about it, of how proud he is of his dad. To me, that was my big why. I have my 6-year-old, or I guess he's 5 at the time, to be there to cheer, support me, to cheer me on, to help me finish. And that was a huge factor. So what that's done for me, and, that piece that I didn't mention, is just being able to show my boys, if you put your mind to something that's really hard and you work hard for it and you find your why and the discipline and the purpose behind it, you're able to do anything, whether it be a crucible, 100-mile race, other endurance sports. But it's not just endurance thing, it's enduring hardship and, relationships you may have, just things with your job, just life's going to happen, and it's always going to be pleasant. And how do you manage that and not shut down, not be willing to fail? So, yeah, that's the huge takeaways for me from that.
And you've had a lot of, as we all do, but you've had a lot of not so vertical paths to success and greatness over these last couple of years.
Yeah.
One of them, it's your keynote message for tomorrow's Rise event, is redefining winning.
Yes.
And so could you explain what that means, and ultimately, what gives you permission to speak on something like that, and how are you doing it in your own life?
Yeah. So redefining winning is, at the time, what I thought winning was, status, money, what the perception of the outside world is of you. You're taught, not to fail. You're always being the front runner in everything you do. And from the outside looking in on my life, as I reflect back, call it 4 years ago from today, I had a beautiful wife, kids, a great house. And from the outside looking in, it was, looked like I had it all put together. I had a great job. I still do have that great job, but in a different capacity. But on the inside, I was depressed. I was angry. Anytime I would be, I drank. I wasn't a nice person. I was a really just toxic asshole, for lack of better words. And it took a toll on my family. I wasn't showing up the way they needed me to. And ultimately, led to divorce. And with that came hardship of, hey, you weren't winning anything. You just lost everything you've spent your entire life building. And you lost it in an instant with some bad choices, a really dark moment along the way. And so I take that, how is that you're not winning anything when you lose it all? So the biggest piece, how did I redefine that? It took me a while to be at peace with letting go of what that was, to not hold that anger in my heart. That's an everyday challenge. Being able to understand, winning isn't, having all these great things. Those are just the outcomes of your hard work. Winning is, showing up every day and being a person that you can look in a mirror and respect, quiet integrity. I don't need, going back to 100-mile race, I don't have to brag about going through hardship. I don't have to brag about 100-mile race. Like, just keeping that to yourself, knowing that made me a better human, father, man. Those are big pieces of redefining winning. The other piece is the resiliency that comes with it. Like, divorce is hard. Lots of people go through it. But, not living in that, it took me, you saw it took me well over probably 2 years before I finally was able to start standing on my feet again. And redefining winning is accepting, hey, I failed in this piece of my life, a chapter in my book that's not so great, but that's not my whole story. Releasing, I'm not the victim in this at all. Getting rid of that mentality, accepting responsibility. So those are all little pieces of what redefining winning. But then, it's not revenge. My boy's mom is wonderful. She's a great mother. I had a lot of anger at her that we went through that, and it's taken me a while to like open my hands instead of having closed fists. So to me, that's winning, is letting go of your anger. There's lots of pieces that go into this, and I'll talk more about it at the event tomorrow. But who do you want to be? Is to me, winning is like showing up for my dad, being a dad, and showing up for my kids every day, every single chance I get. We split custody, so I get half the time with them, but I try to be, even on my days I'm not there, at all their practices and sporting events, whatever it may be, to be that present piece in their life. I feel like winning is creating, confidence within my kids. If I can do that for them, that's winning to me. And how that looks is just, I told you earlier, my word of the year is kind of soul. Like I'm kind of trying to redefine my soul and find peace with who I am and my past. Winning to me is, defining what that looks like and then applying it, saying no to the things that aren't that, would be redefining winning to me. I could go on forever about, the little pieces and idiosyncrasies that make that. The biggest piece is, you're not your failures, and it's not about status or appearance. It's, being someone you're proud of, that your kids are proud of, and, a man you respect, and you're happy to sit down in places like this with, similar men that have gone through hardship and tell your story and not be ashamed of it, but also, be in a way that encourages others to grow and get better.
You just explained in your own personalized way the men's mental health container that is a blanket of unknown variables. Mm-hmm. And it's, for a lack of better words, kryptonite to a lot of guys when they hear that. But explaining it in detail with layers and progressions and plans and ideologies that allows me to hear it and go, well, that's what everyone needs to do. That's what all men need to do, regardless of their experience or their traumas or hardships or what they've faced, because that's going to help you, again, go from angry and bitter to open and loving, which is what your boys and your family, which is what we need, but your boys need it as well.
For sure. I think, it's easy for me to say this. Every day it's a struggle. Every day, some days you win those days, but you get up tomorrow and it may be something different, and just having that mindset of I'm a winner, have hard moments, not hard days. I tell myself that all the time. I try to replicate that to my boys. When we think winning, it's not about the scoreboard at the end of the day. To the rest of the world, it's how you carry yourself. And so, every day it's something new. How do I going to face adversity? Because nobody goes through life not having hardship, not facing adversity, whether it be your job, your relationship, sometimes, your boy, I have 3 little boys and they are a handful, and sometimes your patience wears really thin. Like, how do you want them to remember, their dad when they were, when it was on the brink of failing apart? Like, there's some days I go to bed and I just think, like, was I a good enough dad today? And, try to remind myself, I might have scolded them or a little bit hard on them or whatever it may be. It's like, well, you were still here. You weren't out. Trying to find the little moments that are going to make an impact is what keeps me going in that.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing to see and know. And for some of the men out there who are going through a divorce or who have come out of one, one of the things I want to ask you about is that season that you went through where, first of all, you owned up to your mistakes and challenges, did everything he could to rewrite who you were from the inside out, mm-hmm. and pursue your ex-wife, at the time your wife, as much as you could to show her this model, this version, this change and this shift. Yeah. And ultimately it did not work out. But in that pursuit, there was a stage where you were not showing up as your true self. And in that, it caused some fear, some anxiety, some unhealthy patterns that weren't normal to you. Mm-hmm. And we did a little bit of work and had some conversations. And over time, you made that commitment to be authentic in all of it. Yeah. And if that meant you were not going to remain married and go through that divorce, then that's what you were going to do, because that facade and that version of you was unhealthy. You could feel it in yourself. Mm-hmm. So just explain that, I don't know how much of it was a switch as much as it was just work over time to rewrite how you were showing up in those moments with her in transition or in shared space.
Yeah, so that I look back, that's probably my biggest, I'd use the word regret, but if I could go back and change a couple things is I spent so much time trying to win her back. And in that, I lost my own self-respect, my own dignity of who I was, and lost, who as I was as a man, as a father, in hopes to get her back. And in that process, it did more damage than good because it pushed her farther away. It caused a lot of heartache and hardship for her that she didn't ask for, and it wasn't fair. But like I said, I lost sight of who I was, and it took me, and I did that for a long time. And as the divorce played out and things settled towards the end there, getting that space and that distance allowed me to take these blinders off on trying to save something and let me show up as my real authentic version. The process that is, I didn't know who my real authentic version was yet. So then it's taken another year and a half, and I'm still constantly finding little pieces of, hey, this is who I am. This is what's important to me. This is what kind of dad I want to be. This is the type of life I want to live. And so now, here we are almost 4 years later, where it's like I'm now finally identifying that person and what I want it to look like for the next 10 years while my boys are still at home, and the next, well into the next lifetime. I don't know what's going to happen in 10 years, but I want to keep showing up and living free, doing cool things. I want to keep running. I want to go on big adventures. I want my boys to be able to go with me on those adventures and create a model for them where they see, like, go out and chase your goals and do cool things, but also be a man and a father that, works hard and respectable, shows up every day. So, yeah, the biggest piece is losing my self-respect along the way, getting some space and distance from her, and finding myself. And it's not easy. Everybody says, give space, don't. All this, everybody has advice when you're going through a divorce, and you don't know until you're in that moment, and it just takes you finding your own way to find that recovery.
Is your awareness stronger when you're not your true authentic self, or when you are? Like, do you notice more when you show up not as the version of you, or do you notice it more when you're like, that, I killed that, I crushed that, I was dad of the year, dad of the day?
It shows up more when I'm not my authentic self. It shows up when I'm in the dark moments and the hard spots. Taking a step back, or you're getting so frustrated, like take a deep breath and really trying to respond, not to react to certain negative situations or whatever happens. And then it's taking, like, hey, I don't like this version of me right now, or this isn't who I want to be as a person. So being able to step back and re-identify, what do you want your authentic self to be? Sometimes I question, like, you're acting like an asshole right now. Maybe you're an asshole. And it's like, that's being able to balance and regulate those emotions, to pull yourself back and say, all right, like, yeah, you're having a bad moment, but this isn't who you are. This is not who you're going to be. You need to change your behavior, change your thought process to be that version you're trying to be. So, yeah.
You suffered a pretty big injury after completing the Javelina 100.
Yeah.
Whether that was triggered in the race or prior, or a combination of both. Mm-hmm. What have you learned from that injury? Because as we know from, the runner's high, especially a runner's high with a future race, right? We can get high on our own supply as many days in a row as we need to.
Yeah.
That's the fix. And when you take that away, you're like, now what? Like, going into a gym or squatting is not the same thing as what we were training for.
No, certainly is not. So I'm not quite sure how or when it happened. I think it might have been accumulation things. Tore my meniscus, had to get my knee repaired. Luckily, it wasn't worse. I'm very thankful for that. I always tell myself it could be worse. But running was something that I picked up and was able to escape from my situation. And then as I got deeper into it, like you said, just having that runner's high constantly available to me. With that said, since knee surgery, I've intentionally taken a step back to not use running as an outlet or an escape like I had in the past, and really focus on, building strength, getting healthy again, but also learning to sit with my emotions, learning to sit with whatever it may be that I can no longer escape. If I'm going to go back to running here later on this year, but the past year has been really hard on me, and it taught me to be disciplined and focus on other things. Like you said, hitting the gym in different ways, which has been really good. I'm also getting anxious, excited. Being here in nice weather makes me want to go run. And being around you makes me want to go run. So how does that, like, just another piece of the adversity, like life's going to throw you stuff you don't plan for, and it's not sitting with it and feeling sorry for yourself. It's picking yourself up and finding different outlets to, to be okay. I think you and I talked before, like I wasn't necessarily meditating, I wasn't journaling, but I would take 15, 20 minutes a day and I would just sit in the room wherever I was in complete silence and just process every piece of my life as much as I could. And that was just something little, where now it's a daily habit where I'll take 10, 15 minutes and I won't talk to anybody. I'll put my phone in the other room. There's no meditating, there's no breath work. I think those are all really great things, but it was finding little things that allowed me to have that mental clarity, or just kind of process what I wanted to think about or focus on. Where, when you're running, even a 2-mile run is going to take you 15 minutes. So not having that space, it allowed me to do that.
Yeah, action from non-action, it sounds like a very Buddhist practice, right? Not to put words or language or meaning or definition on this thing, knowing that when you do it, you feel good, and knowing that meditation, breath work, those are all actions. Those are things you do. But when you sit in space, and when you sit and pause, when you decide to slow down and stop doing, you learn a lot about yourself.
For sure.
And you're not afraid to let that inner monologue play. Part of why I've seen so much great growth in you over the years is not only do you do hard things and train and challenge yourself, but you've rewritten a lot of the inner monologue. And that's a very powerful muscle that we don't see, but we hear, right? You know this from knowing me for 4 years and working together. When you give your inner voice a voice, oftentimes it's really simple to see how somebody's thinking, right? And whether that's the sorry, or you feeling like you're the victim, or your language is blaming something on something from the past and not moving forward, or outgrowing it, or letting go of it, you're stuck. You're content with that story that you've always told. And so you've changed that, you've rewritten that. And not only internally, but also externally. And that only comes from the work and the practice. And you were a real fast taker on journaling, especially when we get into mapping and creating your word of the year, your targets, your outcomes, your misogis, your challenges, and then reverse engineering that work. Has that come natural to you at all, or has it been a little bit of a struggle?
It was a struggle at first. Like I said, I had to refine and break my old habits, get away from the situation I was in, to be able to identify who I wanted to be and the life I wanted to live. I'll be honest, I didn't want a divorce. I didn't want a split family. It happened. I'm not going to live with that. It's part of my life. But what do I want the future life to look like you just talked about? So, building that, we talk about the big calendar. What does that look like? Sitting down every December and saying, hey, 2026, these are the 5 things that are really important to me. And then identifying, is it an adventure? Is it a business? Is it a self-education? Building yourself up. That is, what do I want to do as a father? Having all these frameworks of different buckets within your life, and putting one big, piece of that or something that's important to you in them. Obviously, we love adventures. What are the big adventures? The Grand Canyon. What do they may be? Trying to find those misogis, the self moments of, I'm doing this all by myself. So it didn't come natural to me. That came after the hardship. And as we talked about redefining winning, to me, winning is putting these 5 things on the board and then going out and doing them and coming back and be able to have the proud moment that comes with each one, or saying, hey, that was really hard. I put my mind to that, and I did, and I learned a lot from that. So to me, that's something I'm going to continue to do the rest of my life. throughout is just, what am I going to do this next year? As my boys get older, instilling some of that in them of like, hey, what's something really big you want to do? One thing I've learned, and this sounds so cliche, but it's true, is like the only limiting factor is yourself. There is nothing in this world that's stopping you, for the most part, of doing whatever it is you want to do. You and I talked. I was wanting to run with the bulls. This year I just said, I'm going to Spain and I'm running with the bulls. And I just did it,
Solo.
Solo, yeah. Travel all the way around the world, find my way through the Madrid airport with a dead phone to get where I need to go. And I look back, like it was one of the best adventures ever because I told myself nothing's stopping me from doing this. And just having that mentality is one thing that has came from, like you said, identifying who you want to be and that self-reflection. So, yeah.
Yeah, true adventure should not have a itinerary that gets followed all the way through. You should get lost for a true adventure. I think that was one of the protocols before you left. It was like, talk to a beautiful woman, run with the bulls, and get lost in that country somewhere.
Yeah.
So do you have a next country of travel or another one of those big bucket lists in the back of your brain?
I do. You've done it. I really want to do Kilimanjaro. I think that's the next on the bucket list. I've actually been reaching out to a couple places to understand like the logistics of what that looks like. That one's a little bit more, not as easy to just go get lost and just do it on a whim. There's definitely some planning to go into that. I'm not a big, mountaineering guy in terms of, like I say, an Everest or anything, but I definitely want to go, being on the top of continent's really cool. Me, I've ran to the top of a couple states here in the Mountain West. I plan on keep doing that, but I think Kilimanjaro is big on 2026. Hoping to have that figured out here in the next, month or so I can start planning. I am coming back in October to do Javelina again. One of my best friends, he recently did it. We want to do it together, so hoping to recruit you for some miles.
I got 20 miles in me, absolutely.
Yeah. So those are a couple, to say the least. A big thing. My parents are getting a little bit older, so they're really big into big family vacations while their grandkids are super, or at least an age where they're young enough and not busy enough to do that. So really leaning into creating that, being involved with those family moments and making sure my kids get that time with my parents, with their grandparents and their cousins. So that's something that's more of a personal, softer side. I shouldn't say soft, but more sensitive side of creating that family environment for them is really important to me. So really leaning into that, helping my mom, find places big enough to hold the whole family is super important to me. And I see how much joy that brings my boys when they're with all their family and their cousins. And so to me, it's not all selfless. I do get being able to see that makes me happy.
We got a great video we'll put in to show you finishing that 100-mile with your youngest son crossing the finish line.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. I was just a couple minutes behind, not too far behind, but that's a cool video. And that's one of those moments he'll always remember, right? Crossing the finish line with his dad. Talk for a moment about having 3 boys and each one of them connecting differently. And not just blanketing them together, right? But each one is very different and unique.
Yeah, that's something I work on every single day. I have 3 boys. They're everything you expect. They're wild. They're all ambitious. They have their own mindset on the way they think the world is and should be handled. My oldest boy Bentley, he's very similar to his mom, very passionate, comparing, and just I have to. When I talk to him, when I work with him, is embrace him in that mind frame of, he's not like my other 2 sons, Max and Conrad, who are very like go-getters. Bentley's very cautious in the way he approaches life. And when he decides what he wants to do, he goes and does it. But it's not just flying by the seat of his pants. And I think part of that is age, but he's a lot more sensitive. So I can't talk to him like I can my other 2, where I can be a little bit harder on them. I can put some expectations on them differently than I do with my oldest. My middle son, Max, super outgoing, loves sports. And so that's something I've used. I don't want to say use. That's something I've worked with him on, hey, showing up as a team player, being coachable, like how that is more than just sports and it relates to life, being coachable and working with others as a team is huge. And my youngest son, Conrad, I'm still, he's getting ready to turn 8. I'm still, trying to figure out, he always wanted to do what his brothers have done. So now he's getting to the point where he has his own personality, and he's kind of a mixture of the two boys, my really sensitive one and then my really outgoing, in-your-face, hard kid. I tell my, son Max, you're the toughest kid on the surface, where I think Bentley is the toughest kid emotionally. And so Conrad is kind of a mixture of both of them, still figuring that out.
And in that process, did you learn because you read a manual or somebody told you, or the kids said, hey, Dad, we need you to, father us like this? Or did you learn because you failed miserably?
I learned because I failed miserably. I learned, one, when they were younger, like I said, mentioned earlier, their mom's a great mom. She was a stay-at-home mom, did 90% of everything. And so then when I had to take over those responsibilities, it was learning from the ground up. And there's, aside from feeding them, making sure they're clean, getting them to school, there's so much more in dealing with these people. And that came from failure. And I will say, not to be thankful for my situation, but if I had to take one of the biggest takeaways from that is, and that I'm most thankful did happen, is it taught me to be a better dad. It taught me to step up in places where I wasn't necessarily doing that before. And there was no playbook given to me. There was no, this is the way you do it. I think the best advice I've gotten is, from you and the Fathers of the Future, is just showing up is 95% of it. Just being a presence in their lives to let them know, like, I'm here for you. I may not have the answers. I don't even know what I'm doing, but we're going to figure it out together, and I'm not going to let this, fall to shit, whatever situation we're in. And so to me, if you're going to give anybody a playbook, I think just give them a piece of paper, the size this big, that says, here's what you need to do. And that's going to be huge, and not just show up. Yeah.
Clear. One of the last questions I have for you in this podcast about fatherhood and the journey is ultimately about your legacy. And so, boys are young, you're young, turning 40, the big 40 this year. Right? So with that being said, and of course living as a stoic and somebody who is, not afraid of the next transition in life when that day comes, but doing everything possible to live a healthy, long life. Mm-hmm. If your legacy ended today, what would you want those boys to know that you might tell them every day, or that maybe you've never told them, but they're watching you now, Mike Wilcox?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is I'm just, I'm proud of them in everything they do. I think, they're going to face hardship along their life. And as a dad, I don't have, as I just mentioned, I don't have all the answers, but I want them to know, like, they're capable of getting through hard things, whether it be life in general, relationships they may have in the future, something they choose to do. I think that's the biggest thing, is in showing them my legacy is, hey, life's going to knock you down, or you're going to, not always get the outcome you want. It's how you recover from that and how you rebuild that is going to define you, not your failures. I don't ever want to see my kids go through hard things, but I do want them to have the tools that when they do go through hard things, they can recover from those failures and win at life. When we say redefining winning, like, you're not going to be your failures. If you choose to live in that, then you'll stay there. But getting out of that is what's really going to define you as a man, as a father, as a brother, whatever it may be. That's, I guess, the biggest legacy I want to them to take away. I try to tell him all the time. I actually just text my son. He finally has a watch where he can text on. I texted him and said, hey, man, Bentley, I just landed in Phoenix. I'm proud of you. I look forward to seeing you. Just, I don't want him to get so sick of me hearing him tell him I'm proud of him, but I want him to know I'm proud of him, and I'll be there to support him. As you as a father, seeing your kids compete in sports or do excellent in school, whatever it may, like, to me, that's the best feeling in the world. And letting them know, like, regardless if you win, lose, fail, whatever it may be, like, I'm still going to be proud of you and cheer you along the way. So, yeah.
And it takes all of us, right? This brotherhood called Fathers of the Future. You know, my son came to pick you up at the airport about an hour ago, and I sent you a text in private that was like, hey, lean in, ask him questions, right? Get him going, get him moving, like check him in a good way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Man check, right? Ask him the questions that can help him define where he is right now, but also know that somebody who's met him several times over the years and has shared some space and been a part of not only your time training here in Arizona, but also seeing him over the years of a little bit of accountability, knowing there's another man. So giving him the promise that another man cares.
For sure.
And I think for all of us, you know, that's a super vital and important piece of the puzzle that, like, I didn't have growing up. There was no dudes like you or me, right? Raising young men and being a part and active in their role and doing cool shit like running 100-mile races and off-roading and crucibles. There's nobody like that I knew.
For sure, yeah. It was really great to see him. You know, when I met him, he was still probably, I think, a sophomore in high school. And so now seeing him his first year of college is just the way he opened up and like, hey, I'm working on this. This was what my internship was. I'm catching some DJ side gigs. So that was really cool. And then, you know, before I flew out here, when I walked my boys to the bus this morning, that was one of the first, I told him I was coming here, and Connor, are you going to see Cannon? I'm like, yeah, I will. I'll make sure we tell Seth what's up. So like you said, just the networking that has come with this and the relationship buildings that you don't expect, you know, your son, looking out for him looking out for me, just having that, you would never get that and not having this movement. And it goes for, you know, to anybody that's out there, you know, people all over the country, that it's like, these are guys that I trust with my life and my thoughts, and same with my kids, you know, and so that's huge, to your point, Luke, on this network of people that we have.
Well, thank you for being a part of it, brother. Appreciate all the time we get to spend, you know, twice a year now. It's starting to happen in close proximity, doing an adventure, running a triple rim Grand Canyon, a crucible. We'll have to get you out on a surf trip, Art of Flow in Encinitas sometime soon. I appreciate you for being here. I appreciate you and honor you for your service to our country and the U.S. Army. Thank you for that. My family thanks you for that. And if you got something out of this podcast, if you learned something, if what Mike said caused you to think or possibly even act, all we ask in return is that you simply pay it forward. If you loved it, give us a review down below or on any one of our channels. And we thank you for taking the time, energy, and capacity to listen to Mike Wilcox, Redefining Winning on the Fathers of the Future movement. My name's Luke Kayam. Peace.